the kitchen of the cabin,
It's the 5 Games for Doomsday news
with Ben and Steve. Well, this is unfortunate, isn't it, Steve?
It's the second time, you know, it all comes full circle in this brilliant 2022 that we've had to live through.
So we were, for the listeners, we were expecting to be sat at Stevie's playing games and recording this show there, but unfortunately, Steve has been hit with the lurgy, and he's speaking to us, the brave trooper, from his sickbed. How are you feeling, Steve?
Not great, Ben. What a December it's been for me. This is the second time I've had COVID. You know, it's you expect to get it once, right? And Anthony Fauci, the American whatever the hell he was,
medical man.
Yeah, that guy. He said everyone's going to get it. So I assumed in March 2020, oh yeah, everyone's going to get it. They never said everyone was going to get it more than once. It doesn't.
Yeah, I mean, I've had
really
it twice.
Yeah, you've had it twice. My wife has had it
All right,
twice.
then. So this is the second time. Is this one worse than the first time you had it?
Yeah, it's worse because it's happening in the week between Christmas and New Year's. I mean, forget about the symptoms.
When you're on holiday from work, isn't that wonderful?
And the best thing about being on holiday from work during this week is everyone else is on holiday too. Like, everyone is just like sort of in this mood. And it only comes around once a year where no one is expected to get anything done. Everyone's being just kind of lazy, and you can kind of do what you want, do your own thing. And my thing right now is laying in bed in a separate room, quarantined from my wife, basically playing Minecraft, which is what I do when I have nothing else to do at all, and talking to you, Ben, and the listeners of 5 Games for Doomsday, the greatest board game podcast in the world.
That is a balm to your soul, isn't it? I mean, if anything's going to cure you, it's going to be speaking to me and the appreciation. So if the listeners, because this definitely works, right? Because there have been studies that proves it works. So if you send your thoughts and prayers to Steve, you'll definitely heal him, because that definitely works. And the fact that we're in 2022, nearly 2023, and people still believe it works isn't an indictment on the ineffable stupidity of our species, is it?
Well, that's not what I was going to say. I was going to say, if you go to 5 Games for Doomsday /patreon.com or whatever the fuck it is, and you pledge $5,
so you're saying
euros, 5 currencies a month, that will heal me. Like, we have to be like...
that might be the most despicable thing. That might be the most despicable thing I've heard you say this year. You're saying to the listeners that you will definitely be cured if they back the Patreon.
I'm speaking specifically to the Americans because they like to watch televangelists. We're not televangelists. We're like... What is the podcast equivalent of a televangelist?
We're like game sex gurus.
Yeah, something like that. The thing is, I need your money so that I can heal myself. It's not about healing you. And
exactly.
You know, I wanted to say something too, by the way, about this whole COVID thing, because I often rag on America, and so do you, because it's just basically a hellscape, which I've come to learn more and more and appreciate more and more living in Germany. I have a friend who has COVID in the U.S. right now, happens to have it at the same time, and she was able to have Paxlovid delivered to her door. I
don't know what Paxlovid is, but it sounds exciting.
Antiviral medication that's supposed to reduce the likelihood of infecting others and reduce the duration of COVID, reduce the likelihood that you get long COVID. This is what I hear from the internet anyway. You can't easily get it in Germany. You need a prescription. And all the doctors are closed because it's the week between Christmas and New Year's.
Well, of course it is. I mean, why would anyone possibly need a doctor between the 25th and the 31st of December, Steve?
Yeah, I mean, I think if I went to the emergency room, I could get it. But my wife went around town to a bunch of doctors. She found one that was open, and they wouldn't give it to her because they're worried about the side effects, which is another, German idiosyncrasy. They're just afraid of medicine here. They think that you can heal everything.
And yet they will...
With homeopathy and tea.
Yeah, they will prescribe homeopathy at the drop of a hat, and yet actual medicine they're very cautious with. I mean, I'm not a doctor. I don't know, Steve, what's going on. But, you know, I mean, as an American, it should be your right to fill yourself as full of pharmaceutical drugs as possible.
Yeah, I mean, every time I go back, I buy like 300 pill bottles of ibuprofen and Claritin. I went to the pharmacy here once, and you can buy ibuprofen in like packs of 10, and you have to buy it from the pharmacist.
Yeah.
And they warn you that it can, like, it's bad for your stomach, and do you know how to take this? They want to actually give you advice and make sure that you know what you're doing and you're taking the medicine.
That you're
properly.
well.
Yeah. You take this with food. You don't take it too often.
What we need is a society in which if you've got the money, you can drug yourself into a haze as often as you want and hang the consequences.
Well,
That's capitalism, Steve.
I told the woman at the store, don't worry. In my country, you can buy this like over the counter in jars of 300. And she went pale. She's like, what? I guess she's never been to a drugstore in America before.
Medicine should not be based on empirical findings. It should be based on cash, Steve. Cold, hard cash.
Well, that was the other funny thing about going back to America. All the commercials on television for drugs, and you don't get that in other countries. I don't think. I mean, I don't watch television in Germany, but I'm pretty sure
I've never seen it.
It's a very American thing. Like, ask your doctor about this drug, and it's a bit perverse that they're marketing pharmaceuticals directly to people, as if you could possibly understand what they could do to you or whether or not you ought to be taking it.
I mean, did you feel bad about all of the erection drugs there? Thinking, oh yeah, it just reminds me of my inability to satisfy my marital duties. Were you thinking that?
So, what else is going on in the world today, Ben?
Anyway, so in the last news episode, you had something of a rant at the listeners. And I think, Steve, that your rant inspired people to stump up their cash. So usually it's quite a dribble when we're thanking people, the Patreoners. But this month, we've got a load of people to thank for getting on the Patreon 5G for D bandwagon. And unfortunately, because
Ben.
we're...
You say
what?
A dribble? You mean the event that occurs upon the completion of coitus when you are engaged in it?
Exactly. There's certainly no pressure there anymore. My body's not like, oh, we're going to force these wiggly lads up there. It's just like, can we just get this done, please?
Oh, remember when it was like a fire hose?
There's a whole load of Bake Off to watch.
But it used to be like a fire hose. Remember that? Remember those days?
Right. It used to have force. It was like paintballs. And now it's like sort of, you know when you like squeeze a tube of toothpaste? It's like that.
Yeah, that's actually a very good analogy. Picture it now, listeners. This is what you could be paying more for.
All right. So the lovely thing is, Steve, because you don't have access to the list of new patrons, and you're in your hallucinogenic medicated state, so you're probably going to be super creative. So
yeah, you can tell
you're going to have to come up with the nicknames for all of these patrons.
I'm really paying attention to what I'm saying right now. You can tell.
Yeah, exactly. So you're going to have to come up with the nicknames for all of these patrons. And I just want to say before we get to this, if by an oversight I don't say your name the following news episode when you become a patron, please send me an email, 5gamesfordoomsday@gmail.com, and let me know, and then I'll slip you in the next episode.
So to speak.
Right. So, are you ready, Steve?
I have to do all of these?
Well, you don't have the list, do you? So you can't read the list to me. Unless I share my screen with you, and I don't think I can do it on this recording software. So
you would think
you just got to tap into the surreal nature of your illness.
You would think this would be better if we actually prepared in advance.
Hey, come on, you've been sick.
All right, let's do it.
All right, you ready?
Yep.
All right, so number 1, we've got Roger Hauber. Steve.
Roger Hauber. How about
Hauber? Yeah,
Roger?
it's a German name by the looks.
Roger Rabbit in quotes Hauber.
All right, I don't get it, but amazing. So number 2, Christian. Oh right, of course, yeah. Christian Paller, Steve.
Paller?
Sounds like another German.
How do you know it's
Paller? Paller, Steve.
How do you know it's Christian and not Christian?
Well, I assume Paller. I don't know. Whenever I say Christian, I just assume Christian.
Okay.
In the German pronunciation.
Christian Noodles Paller.
Nice.
Because
I don't get it, but there we go.
I had ramen for dinner last night, and I assume Christian is a big ramen fan like me.
Clearly. Christian, if you're a big ramen fan, get on patreon.com/5G4D and confirm it. So, the next one, Steve. Pete on the Road. I assume that's his definitely given name.
Pete on the Road. I think Pete's nickname...
Yeah, Pete on the Road.
Yeah, Pete's nickname is obviously Kerouac. But whack spelled W-H-A-C-K.
Yeah, absolutely. The most overrated book ever written, Stevie. Anyway, the next one.
Objection.
Right. What?
Objection to the most overrated book ever written. That would be Catcher in the Rye.
Oh, sorry, you're actually right. Catcher in the Rye is the most overrated. You're just a phony, Steve. You're just a phony, Steve.
Brilliant.
The next one is Rhinoud. You phony. Rhinoud Ford, Steve. And I think Rhinoud, their email address comes from England, so I think they might be English, but the name is spelled R-E-I-N-O-U-D, Ford. Rhinoud Ford, Steve.
Wait, R-E-I-N-O-U-D?
That's the first name, yeah.
Rhinoud the River Ford.
Nice. Okay, now we've got someone who's definitely German because their email address is German and this name couldn't be more German if it tried. So we have Jens Michael Volkmann, Steve.
Jens Volkmann.
Ja, ich bin Jens Michael Volkmann.
How about Jens der Hammer Volkmann? Because Jens is definitely der
right
Hammer
on
for backing this podcast.
And the next one, Steve, it's someone you know and I know. Are you excited?
Oh,
We've
man.
met them in person, this person.
I'm nervous now. I gotta get this right.
It is the man, the legend, the Lyriacon veteran, Karthik Sethi, Steve.
Karthik, hey, how you doing,
And about
man?
bloody time, I might say.
Yeah, seriously. I'm still waiting for your board game table recommendations, although it's too late since I bought one. Karthik.
Right, exactly.
I mean, I think I need to pick a good one because we're probably going to see him again in March. And
Right, exactly.
This is what everyone's going to be calling him after this podcast is released.
Like his colleagues at work and that as well. And he's like a serious scientist and that, and they'll still be calling it him.
What's his last name?
SETI. SETTY. As in the search for extraterrestrial intelligence, Steve.
Yeah. So how do you suppose the search for extraterrestrial intelligence is going these days, Ben?
I mean, fine. As good as it's always gone, I assume. No change. No change is good, isn't it?
Yeah, that was actually going to be a setup for a joke, but then I forgot the punchline because I'm delirious. Do you think Karthik's search for extraterrestrial intelligence is going to lead him to this podcast where he might find terrestrial intelligence? You see, like the premise of the joke was something like that, and I couldn't bring it together. But Karthik, for supporting,
I mean, it needs
podcast,
workshopping, Steve.
For supporting this.
I'm not going to lie to you;
podcast,
it needs work.
Your nickname is now Karthik Awesome Sauce Sethi.
It's very good. It's a very good original nickname. Awesome sauce. And finally, the last one. Great first name, Great first name. And he hopped on yesterday, Steve. So a fresh backer. And this is Ben Lee, Steve.
His name is Ben?
Yeah, I mean, what a first name.
It's evocative, that's for sure.
Certainly is. It's evocative of great tumescence.
Well, I think I'm going to go for a Scottish warrior king / Hong Kong martial arts pun and call him Ben the Bruce Lee.
Very, very good. Very good. Okay, so I'd just like to say, as we come to the end of this rather torturous segment, thank you so much, all the other people, all the people. I'm a talking genius. All the people who hopped on to the Patreon this month, and if you're interested who in becoming a patron,
who jumped on, who swam on, who climbed on, who leapt on, who flew on, who boarded, who bounded, what else, Ben?
I tell you what, though, you being sick doesn't stop you being a fucking interrupty twat, though, does it? And stop that train, is it, Steve?
Who ran on, who walked on, who stepped on, who joined, who participated, who emolumated, come on, help me, I need some verbs here, Ben.
It's Steven Syrek, the walking thesaurus. All right, so can I get to the end of this section? Or are you just going to carry on fucking talking?
Wait, what are we doing? I'm losing my train of thought here, Ben.
Anyway, so I'd just like to thank everyone who hopped on, who joined, who participated, who leapt, who corralled themselves into backing the Patreon. I'd like to say thank you so much. And if you would like to join these wonderful people, this wonderful community, I've just released a Patreon update with a thanks to all my patrons, and you can sort of get on that if you join the Patreon, feel the reciprocal glow. Get onto patreon.com/5G4D. And now we're going to go over to the two sexiest people involved with 5 Games for Doomsday. Let's get over to them. News! Well, here we are. The two sexiest people on 5 Games for Doomsday. This is me and Steven Syrek. Steve, all the way from his sickbed. I imagine, you lay there with sort of people fanning you and sort of running around your bed, treating your needs?
As one of the two sexiest members of the 5 Games for Doomsday team, in no particular order, I assume, I really don't want to go into too much detail at what the scene in my bedroom looks like right now, lest I be a little bit too provocative.
Can you imagine the electricity amongst the listeners as they're imagining into your bedroom? I assume you're in your pajamas at the moment.
I'm in my pajamas. I've got a box of tissues next to me. Used tissues.
No, what's that for?
Strewn about the room, so let your imagination just run wild with what those are for. I've got my glass of water, my various medicaments, my mask in case my wife has to come and bring me a bowl of soup. I mean, it's a pretty hot scene here.
Wow. Okay, so what we're going to do, this is the title of the episode. If the listeners who've been listening loyally for a year, remember around about this time, we did a New Year's resolutions episode, and the plan was to do a sort of recap and then new resolutions episode. But because Steve got sick, we're only going to do the recap bit. And then early next year, when Steve is back on his feet again, we're going to do the new resolutions. Now, I listened to the episode today to see what our resolutions were.
It's really not fair, Ben.
What?
I mean, most people do their New Year's resolutions.
What's not fair?
Most people finish all their New Year's resolutions in like the last week of the year, right? And I have been denied that opportunity.
That's true. And when we go back over them, right? I mean, you could have really fulfilled them in the last week of December. I mean, definitely.
Hey, give a guy a chance.
Listening today, I didn't think, bloody hell, they were so bloody optimistic, it's untrue. I wasn't thinking that at all.
Oh my god!
All right, so the first
I
one.
don't even remember.
So the first one was at the beginning of the show, was just a bit of a lull, I think, but we should put it in anyway. So I promised as a New Year's resolution to the Patreon backers to have a nude photo of Steve every month with his bits covered over with a certain board game component. So like the board of something. And one of my suggestions was sticking the pieces from Azul up his ass as well. And how did we do on that, Steve? A monthly nude picture of you for the patrons, covering up your bits with board game bits.
Well, the problem with that promise is that it would require you to look at a real nude photo of me before editing it in Photoshop every month. I don't think you were prepared to do that.
Can you imagine? Like, I have not only that, I'd have to come round your house with my camera going, all right, Steve, would you get your clothes off? Steve, get your clothes off. And, it didn't happen.
It's possible it wouldn't really be in high demand either among your listeners.
Are you insane? After that spicy bedroom talk you've just been giving? They'd be absolutely all over it. All right, so getting on to the real ones now. So your first one, Steve, I just want you to tell me, just give me a percentage on how much you achieved of this one, right? This, out of all of the New Year's resolutions that you gave, which were ludicrously optimistic, was the one I thought might be achievable. And this was play every Splotter game in your collection, Steve. So, let's go down the list. What did you play?
I'm not sure I played any of them, to be honest.
I don't think we did. I think we played Antiquity on New Year's Eve, and that was it.
Yeah.
Well, that's what we said in the episode. I think that was the last time we played Antiquity, yeah.
Did we play Food Chain Magnate, or was that already last year?
No, definitely didn't play Food Chain Magnate this year.
Yeah, I mean,
didn't even play Bus.
It's your fault. You always want to play other shit.
And also, you know, you said you wanted to make sure you definitely got horseless carriage to the table, but that's not your fault, so you can't be blamed for that, Steve.
Yeah, I was going to say I deliberately didn't complete this resolution because once Splotter announced that horseless carriage would not be shipped until next year, I thought there's no point in doing this resolution. Yeah. I'm going to carry this one over until next year. Next year, it is definitely going to happen. Otherwise, I can't call myself.
When did they announce that?
I got an email a few weeks ago.
When did they announce that, Steve?
Yeah, there have been some delays in.
All right, so
supply chain in that China.
So your desire to not fulfill it because of that was instigated a couple of weeks ago.
So I speculated that this might happen. I predicted it like around February of last year. I thought, you know what? I don't think they're going to be able to do it. They're not going to make it to Essen with this game. There are going to be production delays. Look at the world. And I decided, see, the thing is, Ben, to live an efficient life, you've got to focus. And you have to like reprioritize on the fly. And just because I said I was going to set a goal in January doesn't mean I have to doggedly stick to that goal throughout the year. You need to be able to change. You need to be agile and flexible in the modern world.
That's right. And you fulfill it. So just as a, we're going to go off the subject in a moment because I've got my Patreon page up here. And I just looked at the exit survey. And there's an exit survey where when you stop being a Patreon, you can write a reason that you stop being a Patreon. It's kind of anonymous. You don't see the person's name. And there's a brilliant reason here that someone on the 11th of October left. What do you think their reason was for leaving, Steve?
I'm supposed to guess what the reason was on the 11th of October?
Yeah, just come up with something.
Did they not like our Essen coverage?
No. So, the reason they gave, this is the 11th...
Is it because Uli fired me from my role as creative
I think that's probably what it was. And I don't know who this was, but this is a quote. Ben's kind of an elitist twat. How'd you feel about that, Steve?
Well, I have to be honest. When I was trying to come up with the reason why to cancel my patronage, it's the first thing that leapt to mind.
Well, I mean, of course. I mean, I am kind of an elitist twat. Anyway, so my first...
For someone who rails so much against elitism, it's kind of an ironic statement.
Well, you know, There's nothing like a good dose of hypocrisy, is there? You know what I mean? All right, so my first resolution, Steve, I completely failed, was to start up my YouTube channel again. Do you know how many videos I did last year, Steve? Apart from, well, technically, if I was a cheaty bastard, because I upload each podcast to the YouTube channel, but that's not what I meant. Do you know how many videos I uploaded to the YouTube channel last year, Steve?
Are we including the design notes?
No. That's a different thing. The 5 Games for Doomsday channel.
I'm going to guess 0, Ben.
No, Steve, 1. I uploaded 1.
Oh,
I wrote an essay
one.
about the Ukraine war, and I uploaded that. And that was it. That was the only video I did last year, Steve. Horrendous.
So we didn't really, set parameters here for what achieving this goal would mean. So you said you were going to start up the channel again. Does starting it up again imply that you post at least 1 video? I mean, what does starting it up mean?
Well, I mean, you could, if you were being a real fucking cheesy bastard, say that that's a pass. But I'm not taking that as a pass, Steve. I didn't start it up again.
I mean,
you know why, Steve?
The thing about goals, Ben, is they need to be we achievable. There's an acronym that we use sometimes at work to refer to SMART goals. They're specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and timely. Was this really a SMART goal?
Well, yeah. I mean, I have all the equipment. I just, I just don't have the confidence. That's the problem.
Well,
I need an injection of confidence.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely need an injection of something, but maybe the goal should be 10 videos, not start up the channel, because it's unclear what that means.
Well, when we come to it next year, maybe we'll revisit it. The thing is, Steve, it's YouTube. You know what I mean? I'm kind of an elitist twat, so why would I want to upload to YouTube and not BBC Radio 4? Okay, so your next one, Stevie.
If you weren't such an ET, you might have more subscribers.
Well, exactly. Phone home. So, your next one is brilliant.
Phony home.
And I knew then... well, indeed. I knew then it was never going to happen, even though I bolstered you and said, you're definitely going to get this done. And this was organise a full-player, 18-player Mega Civ game, Steve.
I mean, I thought about it.
Sure.
I mean, this one is actually Jonna's fault, because I was all ready to do it. She was going to fly in, but she wasn't available on the day that I wanted to do it, and I got discouraged, and I just didn't go ahead with it.
So should we blame Jana for it?
Yes.
Good.
But you know what?
Done.
We still have to do it. This game is burning a hole on my board game shelf. Lo these many years.
I got a feeling that the resolutions list for next year might bear a faint resemblance to the previous year's one.
It might. I might add a few as well, just to make it even more onerous.
All right, so my second one, Steve, and I think it's fair to say, even though it kind of fell off towards the end of the year, I think I did this one. And it was more interaction with people, especially writing updates on the Patreon feed. And I think I did that. Do you think I did that?
Are you talking about the the weekly newsletter thing that you used to do?
Yeah, exactly. I did that for a solid 5 months.
Yeah, I would give you total credit for that. Are you going to do it more in the future?
And I started it up again today. And the thing is, because you've got some weird email thing, you don't get them. But yeah, I started it up again today, and I'm going to power on through, I think.
Oh, is it already published?
Yeah, already published. Even got a picture of you in it.
I got to check that out. I don't know why I don't get these things.
So, your next one, Steve, you definitely did. And I think you deserve 100% credit here. Both aspects, I think. So your next one was make it to Lyriacon and don't drink too much that you forget everything. And you, I'm not saying you were like a baby child, but you were in bed by 1 o'clock every night, right?
Yeah, I have to go to bed at a reasonable hour. I just don't function. But I think, you were a bit more of a party animal at Lyriacon than I was. You and Isaac Shalev. I don't think Isaac Shalev, famed board game designer that he is, slept a single night that we were there.
I mean, the last night he stayed up literally all night and then went to catch his plane. It's incredible work.
Yeah, I would not even try to keep up with that guy.
The thing is, Steve, because, I like to hang out, because I'm an ET, I'm phony ET, I like to hang out with all the posh people. So I just wait for you to go to bed, then hang out with the celebrities, because I'm a total ET. You know what I mean?
Is that what it is?
All right, so I'm giving you that one. So the next two, we can talk about at the same time, because they're basically the same, and I think you did better than me on it. And mine was dispense with my unneeded games, and yours was prune your collection. And this year, Steve, you discovered the no-shipping Essen auction. How did you feel about it?
I mean, I felt pretty good about it, but I wonder how much credit I should give myself for this one, because I kind of trimmed it more than pruned it, I sold a few, but not really as many as I was hoping to. And not many as, in retrospect, I should have. But you want to give me credit for this one?
Sure, I think you deserve credit. I mean, selling one game that you refused to sell games before. And also, now you've realised, I've got a feeling, now you've realised how easy it is to actually upload games to that geek list to sell. I think you're going to be all over it next year, and by September, you're going to have put half your collection up. Am I right?
Well, I didn't realise that there's a digital tool that just does it all for you. I mean, it makes it so straightforward. Thanks to whoever's doing that.
Yeah, and, I sold a few, and next year I'm going to get on it earlier, and I'm going to sell more, because I just like having the hard cash, Steve. Okay, my next one, I think I really did this year, and that is play, and it was inevitable. Because of COVID, we were stuck in a group with a very particular group of people, and we played a very particular type of game. And mine was play a greater variety of games. And I've played a lot of social deduction this year. I've played a lot of trick-taking games. I've played a greater variety and a lot more lighter games. You know what I mean?
You played Doppelkopf.
We played Doppelkopf, which is willfully sort of opaque, but actually really good. Actually really good.
Yeah, and how often do you play, normal card games these days?
I mean, almost never, right? But yeah, Doppelkopf was good. It's a German tradition. Any German listeners here? Get on it. I'm not the kind of ET that'll turn down a game of fucking Doppelkopf. You know what I mean?
I don't think I'm ever going to be able to remember how to play it from session to session is the only problem.
It's the trumps are insane. I couldn't remember from hand to hand, but there we are.
Loads of fun, though, honestly.
Okay.
That's legitimately good game.
Yeah, it's a legitimately great game. Okay, the last one, Steve. So you absolutely, definitely failed this. I failed it less than you because I've actually started this and I think I'm going to finish it. Your resolution was design a game. How did that go for you?
Well, you didn't actually have a resolution to design a game, did you?
My resolution was build and play a prototype. So I think you can argue that I failed at that, but I've written a quarter of a game.
I actually did sit down and start designing a game, a different one than the one I was doing before. But because of the events of the last few months, I abandoned the project. I was hoping to have it done by Christmas as a special gift for you, in fact. But yeah, I failed utterly to get to the finish line with that one. Probably the one I actually devoted, the only one of my resolutions I actually devoted proper attention to trying to achieve. Yeah,
and so I got a feeling this might not go over to next year's list, but I'll be very surprised if it does. And that's it, Steve. I think actually going over those resolutions now, I don't think we did terribly badly. It wasn't as bad as I initially thought when listening to the podcast this morning.
I mean, better than most people who with their resolutions, right? It's not like we tried to...
Right, absolutely.
Lose weight, eat better, clean up our lifestyles overall. That's stuff nobody wants to do.
Yeah, and why should they? So, Steve, if you were to give one resolution to the listeners of this podcast, and it can't be go to the Patreon and back it. You can flog a dead horse too much. I know. I mean, the horse is dead, Steve. Stop flogging it. What would you give them? One resolution
that I'm recommending to the listeners?
Yeah.
Try to introduce board games to one new person in your life who isn't aware of this hobby and the people in it and all that it has to offer. Just find one person this year to bring into the fold.
And that is wise words from young Stevie Cyrek.
News.
All right, it's Q&A time, Steve. I've got the random number generator up. It's between 1 and 26. What number you plumping for, Steve? What do you want?
Why do you always ask me to pick a number when you've already picked one? What is the fucking point of this exercise?
I haven't picked one yet.
No, but
I haven't hit the random number generator yet.
The whole point of asking me to pick a number is because that will be the question that we answer, not you go and then generate a random number anyway. Like, what the fuck is this?
It's gambling. I just want to know what number you feel drawn to.
What do I win?
You win the pleasure of answering a question.
Oh, okay. Okay, what's the maximum number this time?
26.
Let's go straight to 26.
Oh, you're going for 26. I'm going to go for 17.
So you think because it's like kind of in the middle.
And it's 22, Steve. Oh.
You think because it's in the middle, it's more likely to come up, right?
Yeah, that's how randomness works.
Right.
Okay, so this is one that's slightly out of date, but, you're a business type, so you'll be able to answer it, Steve. And I assume in your COVID state that your brain is at top-notch workability right now.
Who is this?
Are you ready? So this is from Ben Tinney. And the question is, well, it's not more of a question, it's more of a imprecation, more of a demand. Please give us your final, definitive and unconditional pronouncement on the CMON shipping controversy and what the ever-rising cost of logistics mean for the hobby, Steve.
CMON shipping controversy. What is the CMON shipping
Are you typing that into Google right now?
No, but I backed Dune War for Arrakis, which I think is CMON, right? And
yeah, I think so.
I regretted doing it, so I asked for a refund. And they were so I don't know. This is going out into a public feed. They said that if you respond by a certain date, they'll give you a 100% refund. But after that date, you have to pay 15% or something as a fee because blah, blah, blah. I thought
reasons.
Yeah, reasons, which is fine. I thought that I sent the message before that deadline, but they were very slow in getting back to me. And by the time it all got sorted out, it was after the deadline. But I don't know. Is the controversy that you had to pay anything at all? Is that what it is?
I've no idea what the controversy is, but I mean, the second part of the question is going on about, give me a second. What's the computer doing? The ever-rising costs of logistics. What do they mean for the hobby? What do you think, Steve?
I don't know how to answer these types of questions. I mean, you just have to deal with this stuff. So, okay, I read a very interesting article about container shipping the other day. I bet you didn't think I was going to say that sentence.
I mean, I'm not surprised, though.
So,
what a life you lead.
Yeah, the shipping, on the ocean shipping. I'm not talking about transport overall or overland. But shipping apparently has gotten to be so efficient and so convenient and so cost effective that it's essentially free. That sending a game from China to the US or to Europe probably costs pennies, but that's just the shipping part of it. The the handling, the loading and offloading and the overland part and the packaging. I mean, I'm sure that there's much more cost.
And the dickheads making loads of cash.
Yeah. I mean, there's more to it than just the shipping part. But what do you expect to pay for a game to be printed and assembled and produced 10,000 miles away from where you lived and then brought to your front door? What should you be paying for that? I mean, I don't know. We live in a world where you can basically get anything that you want very conveniently, and people expect it to cost nothing. Don't back Kickstarter games that are loaded with fucking minis and heavy shit if you don't want to pay the shipping costs. What can I say? And unfortunately, you live in a world that is buffeted by macroeconomic factors outside of your control. We haven't had inflation like we're experiencing now in a long time, and what it's going to mean is things are going to cost more and your money's going to be worth less. Nobody likes it. So you know what it means for the hobby? I'm going to be positive about this now, Ben. By the way, I really think people who go on Kickstarter and whine about this stuff It's like, come on, it's your board gaming hobby. Be a little bit more constructive about it. Like board games, when you go on Kickstarter and you back something, you're backing like a proposition that a game might be created and might be delivered and you might get it. It's not a store, even though people treat it like a store. And when things are late, realize that most board game publishers are quite amateur operations, and most of them are doing their best, and mostly you're going to get what you want eventually. Like I've been waiting for Madeira for like 2 or 3 years now, and honestly, I don't care.
Right.
I know a lot of people are pissed off about it. I'm not, because I've got loads of other games to play, and even if I had Madeira in my possession right now, it would probably sit on my shelf for 18 months before I got around to it. And you know what? I'm sure they're eventually going to deliver it. And when they do, I'll play it then, or, at some point in the next 5 years. I really have far too much going on in my life and other things to worry about to be complaining about this kind of shit, like logistics and shipping and thinking that everything that has to do with games, I have to be like hysterically passionate about. I do want to say this, though. If you really think it's a problem, use it as an opportunity. The world that we live in is flooded with games. We're immersed in games. Get over this fucking obsession with the new and go to your local game group, your game store, your game library, get your friends together, look into your collection, and just like play stuff that we already have around us. Like use it as an opportunity to maybe to meet new people and play their games, or like start a meetup and get people to bring stuff that they have that you haven't played, bring stuff that you have that they haven't played. I mean, we have an embarrassment of riches in brilliant golden age games that already exist that we can appreciate anew. And I think this whole question of like, what does shipping mean for the hobby? It doesn't mean jack shit for the hobby. It probably means something for like the business and your like consumption addiction. It doesn't mean anything for the hobby. The hobby is as healthy and as strong as the people who make it up. And that is you, and that is me, that is us. So
I'm going to bang an old drum here that I've been banging forever.
Rant?
I did. I loved it. It was very good. And I assume you're going to have to go to sleep for 12 hours after that.
I think I should have like. We should start a Steve,
we played a game the other day.
Ben, we should start a Steve's rant, like sub feed or something. I just do like a rant a week or something. What do you think? I mean,
it sounds wonderful. I just worry once you've run out of relevant topics that it'll start to get a bit dangerous. But so I'm gonna talk about something here that I bang on about a lot. The other day, the day before Steve was cruelly cut down by COVID, we played an old game from like 2008. We played Shogun by Dirk Henn. And it is an old Queen game. And its art is not particularly prepossessing. There are not loads of plastic dildos on the board. But the game is so good. And the mechanics are so solid, and it's so entertaining, and it feels so refreshing. And I think in the next year, we're going to have something of a reckoning with China. And I think internationally, and I think we need to think about China being the factory of the world, right? Because I think that they are, foreign policy wise, going to do things that are at odds with what we in the West consider moral. And I think the ever growing arms race of beautiful, lavish componentry is going to come up against a massive roadblock that is China's foreign policy. And while I hope that doesn't happen, because I think the ramifications for the world could be terrible, I think we should understand that small aspect of it is not necessarily a terrible thing, because games are mechanisms. Games are not components. As long as they're serviceable, as long as they do the job that they do, they can create miracles. The cube can be anything you wish it to be. And this idea that you need this very prescriptive, very obvious representation of what you're doing on a board to be able to access your creative abilities is frankly a fallacy. And games live in the mind. And this addiction that we have to lavish production is a bug. It's not a feature. And I think that shipping crises, I think that inflation, And I think the fact that there will be something of a reckoning with China might affect the hobby in the way that we go back to games that tell stories through mechanisms and don't prescribe ideas through componentry. Know what I mean?
Yeah, and I want to add one more thing. The beautiful thing, so we often talk about the high cost of board games as a topic, and you and I have had some disagreements about that in the past. I think you can agree with this. One of the beautiful things about the board gaming hobby is that to some extent it can stand apart from this like global capitalist consumption that we live in. Of course, to some extent it participates in that, but play is not part of that. Like if you have a deck of cards, first of all, there are an unlimited number of games that you can sit down and play. You don't have to be part of this like buy everything as it comes out aspect of the hobby. There are a lot of games that you can play that don't require that you buy like expensive packaged game products. Those are games of a kind, but it doesn't take in all of what gaming is or what it has to offer. And I think we have to dispense with that notion. And I completely agree with you, by the way. We see how quickly the entire Western world like shut itself off to Russia after the Ukraine invasion this year, right? Like every company pulled out of Russia, all the stores there are closed, no one wants to do business with this country anymore. China has arguably been doing like far worse things to the peoples that live within its own borders for far longer than Russia. Comparable at the very least. I don't want to turn this into a foreign policy podcast, but because we have a different kind of economic relationship with China, we depend on it, as you say, to be the factory of the world, and it's precisely the low cost of shipping that has enabled it to be the factory of the world. We seem to have like no real problem with what they're doing, as long as we can keep going down to the department store and buying, cheap clothes. You know, your jeans cost $30 because of where they're manufactured and by whom. So if you have a real problem with this, stop buying stuff that's manufactured in that country. I don't think it's like that easy to do because practically everything is. Wouldn't it be great to see like a homegrown board gaming industry, like a board gaming industry that is like onshored again? I don't know how practical it really is. I mean, you'd have to ask an economist. I'm sure that it wouldn't be very easy at all, but it could be another consequence of our changing relationship with China, that this kind of thing happens more and more. I mean, we already see that lots of like global corporations are trying to move out of China, mostly like to move to other places where they can manufacture things on the cheap. So maybe there's like a larger conversation here around how could we like re-domesticate the board game industry and yet make it sustainable and profitable. And I'm not really sure how realistic it is. If you think things are bad now, by the way, with the cost of shipping and logistics, there's a real possibility that China could invade Taiwan in the next few years, and then everything is off the table.
So, Stevie, what number are you hoping for the second question?
I need some luck in my life right now, Ben. So I'm going to go for lucky number 7. I really don't know why you keep asking me what number I think it's going to be. Like, why does it matter what number I think it's going to be?
You love it. It's gambling, Steve. I'm going to go for 17 again. I like 17. Let's go. You'll never guess what number it is, Steve. You'll never guess what number the random number generator has thrown up.
Is it 17?
I think that your luck is changing, Steve. It's lucky number 7.
I'm cured.
All right, this is from the famous Chris Yee of Dice Tower fame. If you could eat any one fantasy animal, what would it be?
So this implies that both of us are meat eating, doesn't it?
It does. But if you're you've got one opportunity to eat a fantasy animal. I mean, you got to do it, aren't you? Regardless.
It's an interesting question. I was a vegetarian in my 20s, and not only like if you're a vegetarian, you're going to find this question offensive, but when you're in your 20s, you find everything even more offensive than normal, right? So
indeed.
Do you have an answer to this question? I've never thought about eating a fantasy animal.
Well, the thing is, if I'm going to eat a fantasy animal...
I mean, I can hardly, like, stomach the thought of eating, like, non-fantasy animals except for, like, you know, the usual 3 or 4 that we eat.
Well, the thing is, if I'm going for a fancy animal, I'm going for top variety, right? So you go in for your mashup animals, like your sphinxes, or your... Although that's verging on cannibalism. Your sphinxes, your griffins... what's the other mashup one?
Well, I was thinking like maybe unicorn because I have eaten horse meat before.
What did you think to horse meat?
It was fine.
Yeah, it's nice. It's nice. This is top food chat. It's good. We're a food podcast. Yeah, so I'm going to go for what's a griffin? What's a griffin made up of?
Is it like an eagle and a lion?
You should know this. Yeah, there we go. Surf and turf, isn't it? Like air and bear. So I'm gonna go for a griffin because that gives you maximum variety, and you can have wings, you can have light meat, dark meat, everything. Give us a quick answer, Steve.
So I was in Vietnam once doing a volunteer project. This is exactly the kind of story that you want to hear.
Yeah, sure you were. Yeah,
and some of the Vietnamese guys on the project invited me to the local dog restaurant because apparently they eat dog in Vietnam, and I try to be like open-minded in these kinds of situations, and expand my culinary horizons. I just couldn't do it. I could not eat dog. Couldn't do it.
Really?
Yeah, I couldn't bring myself to do it.
That answers the question, doesn't it?
I think I'm into sushi, right? And I think it would be really interesting if I could tuck into some beholder flesh. Because I think it would be like a kind of like fantasy enchanted sushi, right?
But beholders are like totally sentient and like intelligent and that.
Griffins aren't.
Not in my world, no. It's like a bird and a bloody lion, isn't it? You know what I mean?
I mean, some people think that like all animals are sentient, Ben.
Well, this isn't the Peter Singer podcast, Steve. News. Steve, you've got your Christmas money burning a hole in your poche. Where should you spend it?
There's only one place that I can think of to spend all of my money, and that is sirmeeple.com.
Sirmeeple.com. And, you can fill up your basket on 5 Games for Doomsday stuff, but it needn't just be 5 Games for Doomsday stuff, Steve.
I mean, if it were only 5 Games for Doomsday stuff, how many unique products are now offered on sirmeeple.com? I'm just having a look now, pulling up the website, Steve. Board Game Podcasts, 5 Games for Doomsday. The thing is, by the time this goes out, there will be 10% more than you see now. Absolutely. So we have, this is amazing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9... 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. And there's a second page, Steve. 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33. This is getting absurd. 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39. 39 different products you can buy, Steve, in the 5 Games for Doomsday. These include flip-flops, patches, mugs. Can you basically There's a picture of a... At this point, can you practically create an entire wardrobe out of 5G for D merch? Could you go fully clothed into the world? There's no pants or socks. That's the only bit. But there's swimming trunks here, Steve. There's a face mask. There's a bum bag. There's a bum bag, Steve. I think we need some, basically everything. We need some 5G4D survivalist gear. If you go commando, you can basically kit yourself out. Yeah, let's get some 5G4D commando pants. Because of the pun. Do you ever go commando? Are you commando currently? No. You wear underwear under your pajamas? Well, boxer shorts, Ben, if you must know. Wow, that's amazing. You're such a prude. You're just flapping in the breeze under your pajama pants? Damn right. Freedom. Okay, Steve. So, if you wanted to buy a product from these other board game creators, which one appeals to you? I'm going to go to the Instagram creators list. So we've got Ameritrash Talk, Aqua Roll, Beards, Boards and Beards, Evil Jerk Gamer, Frankendice, Gnarly Carly Gaming,
Main Street Meeple, Noob Haven, Nerds Garage, RVA Board Gamer, Sheer Boredom, Table Jables, Tabletop Vibes. Who would you go for, Steve?
Wow, I've basically heard of none of them, but I like the one with beards.
Beards, and Boards, I think it's called.
Yeah, that one. I like that one. It's a very evocative name.
So, where should people go, Steve, to get merch?
Oh, man, you're asking me? Why do you do this to me? You should go to, first of all, your phone or a computer. Make sure it's plugged in.
Yeah, certainly.
On.
Should go there first. Are you Are you stalling while you go to Google and look it up?
Open a web browser.
Yeah.
Which do you prefer?
Could be Safari or fucking the Google one.
You prefer Chrome? Do you prefer Firefox, Safari, Internet Explorer? Which browser do you use, Ben?
I use Chrome.
I mean, the point is...
Because it interfaces with my Gmail very nicely.
They all work when you're trying to go to sirmeeple.com/5G4D.
Exactly. Get there, buy some swimming trunks, and let's dive in. Thank you for listening to the 5 Games for Doomsday news. To listen to past episodes, you can go to 5gamesfordoomsday.com, or to back the show, you can go to patreon.com/5G4D. So, join us again next month for some hot and spicy 5 Games for Doomsday news.
That is wise words.
That's what I said.
That is wise
Jealous?
words. I'm going to fucking kill myself.
What I said, Steve, yeah.